times upstairs, I put cords, they all just keep coming unplugged.
I
Tie
also,
wrap it.
Pause on our phones.
I also did a Go library.
That's not up. He's not up.
Yeah?
So, yeah.
Your just hair, or
The
did you
shape.
paint it?
Shaped it
You didn't
all.
carve it in.
Not yet.
Not on your head.
Not yet.
I love that.
You gotta like unplug it from the bottom, make sure it's plugged in on the bottom.
An AI.
AI out.
There we go. Baby.
Let's all start.
Still unable to.
Oh my God, you're insane.
But I'm not.
More targets for Thursday. Just more targets for you.
That's much about it.
That's much better. I'll hold you back.
That's much about my husband was her.
Oh. Site.
Everyone has a story.
I just did.
I do have public knowledge.
You didn't even say hi to me. That was right. So you.
Courtney, can you just announce that we'll be with I'm gonna unmute it, can you just give folks a minute that we're still trying to get the camera to work?
Good evening and welcome to the Stow Selectboard, March 12th, 2024. We are still working to get our camera connected. I think I'll start to take public comment on anything that is not on the agenda this evening. Linda.
Linda Hathaway, the town clerk, and I just wanted to report that nomination papers are available for the election. I just learned today that Karen Devine is not going to run for school committee, and so that position is open, and there's still one library position that nobody has taken out papers for. But information is on our town website. The last date to take out papers is March 27th until 5 p.m. And to turn around and get the papers back to the Board of Registrars by the 29th. Need 39 signatures, but we have some incumbents that are choosing to run in most of the different departments. But you can see the information on our website, and it will be in the Stow Independent tomorrow.
Thank you. Any other public comment on items not on the agenda? Hearing none.
I'm not sure that we're connected to Zoom yet.
You are, cause you're connected here, this was just
Yeah. It's just an easy.
So I can't see if there's
trying to
anything.
get something to work at the moment,
Yeah,
but.
of course, but I will move to board member comments for the moment.
None from me.
None for me.
Hector.
Just wanted to acknowledge March being Women's History Month and encourage all residents to learn about the valuable contributions and accomplishments of women.
Thank you. Let's move on to various appointments. We first have Joe Jacobs to the position of Veteran Services Officer through March 31st, 2025. We have any comments? Denise, I know you're busy.
No, I respectfully ask that you you reappoint Joe Jacobs to the position.
Thank you. Let's move to a vote.
You ready for a motion? Madam Chair, I move to reappoint Joseph Jacobs as the town's Veteran Services Officer to fill a one-year term from April 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025.
Sometimes.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. And then we have some appointments to the Town Hall Building Reuse Committee.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
Wait, shall I just plow ahead or?
Plow ahead.
So we have 3 people tonight for the Town Hall Building Reuse Committee. Maureen Crawford, William Roop, and Richard Fishman. I see Richard here.
There is a Maureen, I don't know if it's Maureen on, Maureen, if that's you, if you could raise your virtual hand.
No.
Yes, okay, so, great, she's on, and Bill Roop is on vacation, unfortunately, he could not make it this evening.
Okay. I'm quite happy with everyone's credentials. Would anybody, the 2 of you that are present, like to make any comments about joining the committee? Maureen? Okay, we're having technical difficulties.
Shall I wait?
Let's have your question now.
Okay, Madam Chair, I have a question for the candidates, and I understand that William Roop is on vacation, so I can't ask the question.
Wait, I'm sorry, I don't know that she's hearing it at the moment.
Okay, all right, I'll wait.
Okay. Go ahead.
Maureen, can you hear me?
She muted herself again. It's not gonna work, we can replace the owl with that and see if that works, but it's not gonna work through here, cause we're gonna get feedback. There's one on the shelf, so you can, we just don't have cameras, so you can continue until we can get a camera working.
Okay, as long as people can hear me online, better online. So the question I have is, what made you interested in this position? And what do you hope to contribute to it? So that's it, if people could give like a 2-second answer or something. I don't know if Maureen can do that, or, and Richard's in the
Oh,
audience.
damn, we can't hear her. I think Morgan, you're sitting, so your hair is hitting the screen as a touch screen, so somehow we are now on, the volume over there has been shut off. And I can't.
You want me to press volume down here?
You can try that, I can't see.
Is it not my business?
It's on 0, so it's gotta go the other way.
Oh.
Keep going, yeah, it should go way up.
Okay.
Okay, let's try that again. Maureen, could you try that again? No, we're not hearing her.
Well, I guess maybe it's a moot point then.
Yes,
Do you wanna just put
maybe-
it on the table?
Yeah, just put it on the table.
Just put it on the table? No. Do
Yeah.
you have to hook it up to here?
No, we're gonna try. Oh no, that's the broken one.
What's the broken one?
That's why there's a sticker across the top.
Oh.
Could we take maybe a 5-minute break?
Sure. Let's take a 5-minute
I wouldn't mind
break.
just pausing for 5 minutes. Can you reach the plug in the back of the TV and unplug it where the camera goes?
So Zoom says they can hear.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see that they can hear us, but now we can't hear them and.
Again,
Yes.
I was invited to the UN meetings this week and next week. And
It's right outside the door, Richard.
Should be a copy of that outside.
it's gonna take some time.
Actually, you know what, Kathy?
And,
Let me just restart them.
He's gonna be the carpet.
He was on
Okay, if you,
It's all right with me, and
Right,
Kevin,
so that,
you
um,
can
you
get
fix that
along
trash
really well,
barrel
and it's like,
there?
okay, that's
Because that's
for me, because
Yeah,
I don't have to
yeah,
babysit.
that's
I told him, I said,
Okay, that's fine. If you can try and plug it back in. Actually, hold on, did you already unplug it from here?
This
one.
No, we're gonna try it here first.
TV station for the kids he works with, and he wants to pick up some equipment,
Would be
so.
perfect, the touch screen.
Oh, I was just
Hitting the
showing.
screen. Don't do anything, Aaron.
No, this came out,
Oh, you,
this was out before.
oh, so it could just be that. Turn the knob on the side and you can plug that, no, this side here.
Wants to get him back, at least to refurbish.
Sorry, no, I can't see it.
Yeah, this could have been the problem, yes.
I know, that's what I'm wondering too, he was telling me this. Just. Okay.
Or will that be part of your report?
Okay.
Is that what the problem is? You wanna just put it on the table for now?
You can't, because the thing on the bottom.
You know, I'm sure, right, and I'm sure George isn't looking for the most up-to-date stuff, you know, so I think, you know, flexible about what we think.
Can you reach up and hit OK with your finger, please?
And he also, we have a connection to.
I'm sorry, Kathy, what?
So
You can't put it
there
back
we
on.
go, Jonathan,
Yeah, but now we need to reboot it again and I can't. Now we need to get on the other screen. We need to get on the other screen.
We know him, so we're gonna try to get up there just so George can see, like, what he might need. So that was
Is there
another.
anything I can do to help?
We don't know for sure. I also thought about contacting Emerson College.
I know, I don't wanna.
Ideally. Just sit on the side.
These, let me try one thing, but these touch screens, you know.
Could be,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm the one who's very against the library. Right, I mean, way to stick in with it. So anyway,
We just reached out to.
very great. It's 10,000, it's 5,000.
Yeah, well, you know, he said he wanted to try to reach up to the radio stations in the area, and I said, well, that might be kind of hard, but
Okay.
connections, you know, like, we're just chamber productions too, as well, you know. So he started out last year wanting to do a podcast, and he had a laptop, and Ozzy gave him his
Aaron, can
microphone,
you
don't
see
ask
if
me
you
where
can
Ozzy
put
got it. And so he started doing that, and then he realized everybody was really enjoying. So they can watch it on their phone too, and really enjoying sort of the live stuff too. He's like gospel music and talk, so then he interviews people. He wants to get his kids to come in on Saturdays and be able to do some stuff. Yeah, so he's really excited about getting it going. Is this yours? Go there and just kind of look at it.
I'm related to it,
Is that
but
on
I
your-
did not put it.
But this is your.
Yeah.
No, Malcolm.
No, I meant like, but you are.
Part of the comprehensive plan, yeah.
The presses, because there's been a bit of a delay.
So there's a repeater here, and then.
See if you can. Okay, we're back in business.
Okay,
Thank you.
Let me unmute us, let me just get
thank you
back
so
settled.
much. Go Denise, go Denise, go.
You are on and ready to go. Oh, wait, let me just make sure. You're unmuted? Yes. Madam Chair, take it away.
Alright, picking up where we were speaking with the potential appointees for the town hall reuse committee. And we were hoping to say hi to Maureen Crawford, who is on Zoom. And Ingeborg had a question. Would you like to restate your question for
Sure.
the candidates that are here tonight?
I'd just like to ask why the candidates are interested in this position and what they anticipate they'll be bringing to the role on the committee.
Hi,
Hi.
Maureen here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hooray.
Yes, and no reverb. Yay. I apologize for not being in person, but I have a sinus cold and I didn't want to share it
Thank
So
you.
my thought, minus cold and headaches are not fun. My purpose behind applying for this was that the town hall is the center of town, and it's to a certain degree minimally used at this point. And I know that there was a past committee looking at the renovation of it, but at this point, I think we need to look at it as a whole. And do we renovate it? Do we repurpose it? What is the end goal of the building? And how do we come to that end goal? And a lot of things have to be looked at. We have to look at what the prior work was done, and then kind of break that down and think, does that still work for the town? Because we have a lot of, we have Pompous City Kid for that community space there. Do we turn it into maybe office space for the town? Or, there's so many different aspects of it. And being in Stow for 25 years, I thought it was time for me to kind of expand beyond just affordable housing, because of those committees that I'm on, and use some of my experience from projects at work to also apply here. And I'm sorry, with the head cold, I'm a little not coherent, I don't have all my thoughts pulled together.
All right, well, thank you for answering that question. That was helpful to me. And
Richard, do you?
Yeah, so my name's Richard Fishman. I've been in this town for about a little over 3 years, and I've worked on the library redesign, exterior design, whatever, building exterior design, the building exterior committee, which is the work is kind of winding down. I like buildings a lot, and I have no preconceived notions about the town hall, but I think it's unfortunate that it's not being used more. And I don't know if it's even in a state of decay or if it's just neglect or what, but I would like to help determine the next step for that. As Maureen mentioned, it's in the middle of town, be a nice gathering place perhaps, but maybe that's not the best use. And what do I bring? I have a background, I had a career in graphic design, so I have a aesthetic sense about me. I'm a painter. So that's what I bring. I don't know legal stuff. It's the kind of thing that I'd like to work on, and hope I can find another way to plug into the town, which I've really grown to love being here.
Thank you. That's great. Anybody else, anything? Shall we vote?
You ready for motions?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do one at a time.
Sure.
Madam Chair, I move to appoint Maureen Crawford to the Town Hall Building Reuse Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I move to appoint William Roop to the Town Hall Building Reuse Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
And Madam Chair, I move to appoint Richard Fishman to the Town Hall Building Reuse Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that is also unanimous. Thank you all for stepping up. Thank you
Thank you.
and good luck.
Thank you.
So somebody will let me know when it meets and stuff?
Absolutely.
You'll get an appointment letter from my office, and then we'll coordinate the first kickoff meeting so that the group can get organized.
And in order to vote in a committee, you have to be sworn in, even though you've been sworn in for another committee. So
Sure.
the clerk will also get in touch with you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have Rebecca Lynch to the Stow Cultural Council until June 30th, 2027. Is Rebecca here on Zoom or anywhere?
I don't believe so.
Well, we're grateful to have you interested in the cultural council, and I will,
She's been on there, this is a reappointment for Rachel.
so thanks for that. Looks like Kelly Lawler was waving her hand.
And she's giving a thumbs up.
Give it a thumbs up to it.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
All right, Madam Chair, I move to reappoint Rebecca Lynch to the Stow Cultural Council for a term ending June 30th, 2027.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Moving along to discussion items for this evening, we have our brave town administrator's presentation on the financial state of the town.
May I give my brief town administrator time first?
Oh, please.
Thank you. It's short, but there are a few things I just wanted to
Kind of
mention.
swept past it because I wasn't gonna bother you earlier.
And I appreciate that. I would, on behalf of the planning department, I would like to encourage everyone, especially our board members, to participate in the comprehensive plan survey. The link is in the correspondence. I think it was left for you as well. Or residents can find it on our website and social media sites. I would also recommend that folks add their thoughts to the crowd map. It's very interactive, and we really want to get feedback from all over the community so that they can plan the next 10 to 20 years for Stow. If the board is interested in learning more about it, we can schedule some time at an upcoming meeting, or we can schedule a meeting in a box where you would actually participate in an exercise at a meeting. We wouldn't do the whole thing because it would be lengthy, but you could pick a specific portion if you were interested in doing one of the tasks. Speaking of the comprehensive plan, yes,
Isn't there a meeting scheduled for the 18th?
that was my next comment. But that's not an interactive meeting. So,
Okay.
speaking of, back in January, I notified you that on Monday, March 18th, it's a fully virtual meeting that's taking place with the Comprehensive Planning Committee and members of the Select Board and the Planning Board, obviously open to the public as well. At the meeting, the consultants plan to present the existing conditions inventory and provide an overall update on the planning process thus far. This will conclude phase 1 of 4 of their work. So once I get the link from Valerie, I'll send it out to you. I will post it as a meeting in case there is a quorum. Again, it's not going to be as interactive as we would with a meeting in a box, but it would be informational if you are able to attend. On behalf of Linda, the last day for folks to take out nomination papers for the annual town election is Wednesday, March 27th, and the last day to return nomination papers is Friday, March 29th. So just a little over 2 weeks to get that process done. That is it for my report. And now I will go into my presentation. Oh, and it's still not opening again. What happened? Sorry, it's still telling me it's read only. No, let me, I'll just open it, if I can open it read only and see what happens. Go away. It was nice. Okay. So this year I decided to add in some small demographic information into the presentation. So here's just an overview of the population in Stow, and you can see how it's increased over the years. We are ranked 242 in growth out of the 351 municipalities in Massachusetts. Here's a breakdown by age group of Stow. Our primary age group is 45 to 54. Just a nice little snapshot to show Again, sort of 25 to 54 is the largest population, and then it spikes again, the 65 to 74 crowd. So just a nice breakdown of the ages that make up our community. This I also thought was interesting, once it comes up. It shows the type of households we have. So 69% are family households, 72% of that married couples, 16% singles, and 7% seniors living alone. So it's just a nice snapshot again to show you the demographics, what our households are made up of. And then at the bottom it shows that with family households, we're 48% higher than the state average. The married couple, same thing, 53% higher, and then the singles and seniors were lower than state average. I would say naturally, our community is more based on families. We don't have a lot of houses and properties for singles or seniors living alone. Sorry, oh my God. Okay. It's our organizational chart. Just a snapshot to show you sort of how things fall in line. The yellow boxes are our elected boards, or the moderator who's elected. The blue are our appointed positions. So you can just see it's a nice way to demonstrate how the positions fall in line under the specific boards and committees in town. Now we'll get into it. So certified free cash, we talk about this every year. Free cash is the amount of money that we end up in the year taking in more than we've expended. The goal is to be on or above 5% of the annual budget. Fiscal '24 is an anomaly for us. We were at 9.8%, and that's because of the $1 million from the Lower Village settlement went into free cash. So if we took out the $1 million, we'd be at about 2.2 million, which as you can see is fairly standard for where we end up at the end of each fiscal year. This year we have those extra funds to spend if we choose to do so. Our stabilization account, otherwise known as the rainy day fund, we build that up every year. So in the event that we need something, an event there's a large purchase we need to make, a capital item, we can't balance the budget for one reason or another, this is there to sort of bail us out of that. It is healthy to add money every year so that we stay in trend with our budget increases, so that we always have a good supply of stabilization, again, should we need it. 2 years ago, we created a capital stabilization account. This is specific for capital purchases or capital funding. It's only in year 2, so there's only $153,000 in there. I am recommending in fiscal '25 we make yet another appropriation to that. The goal would be that we build up the capital stabilization and either make a large purchase. For instance, when we get to that point, capital, there's just under $1 million fire truck being requested this year. It'd be great to build up the capital stabilization. You can pay one time out of that, or we could pay debt service out of the capital stabilization to build our capital plan appropriately. In the past, we used free cash almost primarily to pay for capital expenditures, which is fine, but in a year that we have a lot of requests, we only have so much free cash to go around. So it's nice to have an additional fund that we can rely on to invest in our capital expenditures. So where does that leave us with the available funds as a percentage of our budget? Our available funds are the stabilization accounts combined with free cash. The target range is 10 to 15%. Again, this year we're at almost 14% because of that extra $1 million that we have from stabilization. So while it's great, but you can see it's not really the norm to be that high above sort of our average, which is around 3 million. That's probably more likely where we will end up in the future years. Our OPEB trust fund, we talk about this a lot, the other post-employment benefits. So this is future health insurance for current employees. So when that's a liability that we incur for every employee that we have, because someday they'll retire and have benefits for us. So we are required to hire an actuary and do a an actuarial for us every 2 years to tell us what our pending liability is. We have not had the most recent actuary yet, so this is still based on last year's number, which is $9.2 million is our current liability. We have 1.6 million in the trust. When they do the actuary, it's based on a number of different factors: age, demographics, what's going on in the world, life expectancy. They put all that together and determine how long, quite frankly, how long people are going to live and how long they'll need life insurance, and then come up with a calculation for that. The goal is to fully fund this account. We're at 17.88% funded. Ideally, by 2035, we should have this fully funded. Now, in reality, a lot of towns won't make that. We are fortunate we don't have a large workforce that's benefit eligible. So 9.2 million, even though it's a large number, it is attainable for us. Other communities like Springfield, Boston, that are in the billions and billions of dollars for their unfunded liability, they'll never make that. So it's not a requirement to fully fund it, but the auditors look at that and it goes into our financial statements, how prepared we are for the future. So we are well ahead of a lot of communities our size in planning for it. It comes up every year at town meeting. Everyone asks Neshoba what they put into the OPEB trust, because for an employer the size of Neshoba, they have a much higher liability. We are much further funded than Neshoba is. So just what is OPEB? It's just an explanation. It's the years of active service, and it creates an accounting liability. So it is it's considered compensation for employees, because you calculate that into really the true cost of what an employee is worth based on their future liability as well as their current benefits. Our snow and ice account, shockingly, we're under budget this year. I don't want to jinx us, because we all remember April 1st, 1997, but right now we're doing fairly well. If you'll recall, in the years past, usually in February, you're voting to overspend or deficit spend the snow and ice accounts. And every meeting, I push that off another meeting, hoping that this year we won't need that vote. So today, we're just under 150,000 spent. We have a $200,000 budget. We will continue to get some invoices in for materials and things that have happened, but if we continue in this pattern, it might be the only year you can see back to even prior to fiscal 18 that we have not deficit spent our snow and ice account. So, global warming. So last year, fiscal 24 town meeting, this is what the adopted budget broke down to. This should be no surprise to anyone. 66% was for education. General government was next at 10%, public safety at 9%, debt at 7%, public works and other, which is sort of our health insurance and liability insurance, at 4%. Even though the numbers change year to year, the pie breakdown stays fairly similar, and you'll see that in a moment. Our revenue estimate, again, shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. 90% of our revenue comes from tax levy. So taxpayers are funding almost our entire budget. 5% on local receipts, which is like motor vehicle tax, licenses, fees, other sort of a grant money and anything that we can use to offset expenditures, and then state aid, which we'll talk about is just, quite frankly, for us, it's a joke. It's just not even, it's not even, it doesn't really amount to much. Since 2019, our state aid has increased by $26,000. Over 7 years, that's the increase. This year, we're almost net zero because we receive state aid and then the state gives us our cherry sheet expenses, and they increase more than the increase they gave us in state aid. So we're actually losing $500 this year in the net state aid. So, you know, when our rep and senator will come in a few weeks and talk about how they're getting all this money, it's 2.5% to us, but again, in the end, when you're getting so little, it amounts to almost nothing in funding. So taxes. Our fiscal 24 tax information, the average single-family tax bill for fiscal 24 was $12,498. The average single-family value on a home is up to $736,500. We have 2,122 parcels with a tax rate of $16.97. Our estimated new growth for fiscal 25 our assessor is estimating at $350,000, which is up from $257,000 for this year. People are building, adding on, new homes that are coming online throughout the permitting process. I would expect that to continue to fluctuate depending on the status of permits. We have a lot of big projects, depends when they are approved and when that starts to see when that new growth will actually hit. But for now, we're budgeting $350,000 in new revenue. Tax rate history, so as I just mentioned, 1697 is the tax rate for fiscal 2024, is the lowest tax rate we've had in the town of Stow since 2010. As you know, the tax rate is based on almost a scale, if you will. As values go up, the tax rate goes down. We still collect the same amount of money, it's just spread out differently based on per thousand value. So when people say our tax rate is out of control, it's not, the values are out of control. Tax rate's quite low actually in comparison. So I would expect that. I did talk to the assessor and she said that values seem to be leveling out a bit. There's not as many sales happening. So, potentially in 2025, the rate will increase if values start to dip again and level back out from where they have been the last, say, 2 years. But for now, we're at $16.97 per thousand. Just a little snapshot of Stow over the last 10 years. The per capita income in Stow has increased by 53.9% since 2015. The number of single-family parcels, we were at 2,075 parcels in fiscal 2015. We're at 2122 now. It's increased by 2.2%. And the value of single-family homes has almost doubled. And as I said, the fiscal 24 tax rate is the lowest it's been since 2010. So it's just a nice snapshot of Stow through the years, and you can see the values of the home. 2015, we're at $428,000, now we're at $736,000. And I'm gonna pause for a moment because I see Stow TV, and I assume they're asking about closed captioning, but it's on. So let me just, Dan, is that your issue? Jonathan?
We see no captions.
Yeah, I'm reading them, so they're on.
All right.
Thanks.
I get.
Go back to me. Okay.
Question of her presentation, or should I wait until afterwards?
I'm fine if you want to ask a question.
Yes.
I'm just curious, so there's 2122 single-family parcels, and there's 7,100 people, and obviously there's like multiple people in some houses. So are we just math-wise, does that mean the balance is made up of apartments or rentals, or what is that?
Yeah, so these are single-family parcels. So apartments and multifamily homes are not counted in that single-family parcel count.
Okay.
Because it's to compare apples to apples, they pick one demographic, which is single-family households.
Okay, which is the majority anyway, so.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this little map that DLS puts out, Division of Local Services, we talked about this last year. Obviously, the red arrow is where Stow is. This is just a nice color breakdown of average tax bill. The darker blue that's just to the east of us, Metro West, is over $15,000 a year in tax for the average family tax. And you can see we're right on the cusp of that. And the little breakdown to the right, it breaks down the number of communities in those ranges. And Stow falls into, there's only 30 towns that are with the average tax bill between $10,500 and just under $15,000, $14,999. So yes, the taxes are high. The average single-family tax bill across the state is $7,400. We're at $12,000 and change. But we talked about last year, it's Metro West. You can see it slowly moves out. I would expect that to continue to expand, potentially a little bit further west. We may be in that higher group in the upcoming years as our assessments increase, as homes are being knocked down and built bigger and more expensive. But we are in that sort of sweet spot right now that we're right on the cusp of the true Metro West communities that are paying over $15,000 a year on average on their taxes. How do we compare to our neighboring towns? So here's just a breakdown: Acton, Harvard, Bolton, Boxborough, Stow, and Maynard. Acton ranks 20th out of the 351 communities, Harvard at 23, Bolton at 24, Boxborough at 28, and we fall in at spot number 29. Maynard is 68. They're a little bit different. They have a much larger business base than we have. And I would say they're more of a blue collar community than just that step out, one town over. But it shows. I mean, we're not an anomaly. It's all the same for the communities around here that are similar to Stow. Breakdown of the cost of service. Again, the average single-family home is $736,000. How does that break down when you pay your tax bill? And I can't see because I do see the closed captioning. The average tax at $12,498 breaks down like this. So $824 of that goes to general government. $1,042 goes towards public safety. $7,300 goes to education. $486 to public works. $177 for health and human services. $153 for culture and recreation. And all the rest are, general expenses and benefits is $824, and then the rest are all debt exclusions. So those are all, everything that's listed as debt exclusion, Lower Village, Minuteman Elementary School, those are all added to your tax rate. You calculate your tax rate, and then those are all added on that has been voted on by the community over the years that you've agreed to pay for out of your taxes. Next year, you'll see Randall Library, you'll see the high school, the new high school debt. I don't believe any of these fall off the debt schedule soon. Many of them were borrowed for 20 and 30 years, so they still have a number of years to go before they're falling off the tax rate.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I just didn't know if.
Yes.
So you'd mentioned about the tax rate and it being similar to other towns around Stow, or the type of town that Stow is in abutting towns. But also talked about the number of businesses that we have. And I noticed that the difference between some of the other smaller towns like a Bolton or maybe a Boxborough is that we have, some vacant businesses. We have issues with filling these business sites that we have. And so I just kind of I don't know if this is a question that you can answer, but what's been happening towards, I think it's bigger than what you're presenting now. So I guess it might even just be a comment to say, like, I know that there's a lot of residents that are curious about how that's moving forward. I know that there's water issues and whatnot. And so, I think the concern is that the taxes continue to, increase, but we're not able to kind of offset that even to the amount that we can by filling in the business sites that we have.
So that's actually a misnomer. The businesses, so Linnea Plaza pays us a significant amount of money in taxes, even if all those businesses are empty. The property owner pays taxes. Bose pays taxes. The building's empty. The values might increase a little bit if there's a business in there, but they're already paying their real estate tax valued at what the property itself is valued at. So it doesn't matter if they're empty, if they're full. We're getting revenue from all of those vacant buildings. There might be one or two in town that aren't paying because they're not taking in money to pay us. But that still counts toward, that's not affecting your taxes because we still bill them. So we still send them a bill, they're still based on the total tax assessment, we're just not getting that revenue. But if we filled all of Lower Village, it's not gonna impact your taxes. Things that we've talked about in the past over the years, we would need a new business and a property in town that's not currently occupied in order to see additional tax revenue come in. We would need to see something, and I will use marijuana, the town has voted against it, but something like a marijuana company that comes in, that's completely new revenue to the town. It didn't exist. Say they're going in a property that was vacant and someone sold a vacant land. That's the only way we get new revenue from business. Otherwise, it's a minimal increase because there's, like I said, they're being valued on the cost of their property.
Okay, that's helpful.
So.
And I think that is something that you know, a lot of people had brought up when this discussion comes up, so I think super helpful answer, thank you.
You're welcome. There's a hand raised online. Can I ask you to log in? 'Cause
Yes.
I think it would be easier for you to help me if people are raising hands.
So Denise, are you comfortable fielding questions as they come along?
That's fine, if you're okay with that.
Yep.
Okay, Maureen? I don't know where the hand went. Okay, the hand seemed to have been, oh, there's the hand.
Thank you, I was still muted. My question, and it goes along the line of the prior question, is, yes, I understand that the businesses are paying rent or taxes, whether they are empty or occupied. But in talking to the building department, some of the bylaws that we have, what kinds of businesses can go into those locations, they are very ancient. And I think if we want to promote to the town that, you know, we want to bring those other businesses in and occupy those buildings, that possibly we need to revisit those bylaws.
So I'm gonna interrupt you, Maureen, respectfully, that has nothing to do with my presentation tonight.
Okay.
We're not gonna talk about zoning bylaws and what can and cannot go in town, so respectfully, I'm gonna ask that I stop your
Okay.
question.
No? All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have a question about the slide. Or you want me to?
No,
Do you wanna keep going?
if you have
go
a
ahead.
question about
This
this.
slide.
I just had one quick question about the slide. So, in the line for debt exclusion for Lower Village, how much do we still owe for that?
I don't have that.
Okay,
in front of
that's
me.
fine. My bigger question is we've already committed that $1 million settlement to free cash? Is that something that could be like, do we ever pay like if we get a chunk of money, do we pay, like, could we apply that just to Lower Village? And then the debt exclusion for Lower Village on people's individual tax bills would be less because we had already paid down that balance of it? Like, I think we had talked briefly about like when we got that settlement, you know, what would be done with that money? And so is that something that is still a conversation, or do we think that it's been appropriated and it's done?
Well, so free cash, we don't appropriate into free cash. Free cash is the money we have at the end of the year, we appropriate
okay.
out of free cash.
Okay.
So Valerie and I are working on what we can use free cash for to benefit Lower Village
Okay,
specifically.
perfect.
I would say it's not advantageous to use it, and I can look to see what's left on there.
Okay.
But it wouldn't be advantageous to pay this, we can't prepay debt. You know, we would have to put in an account and then pay the debt service each year.
Okay.
A lot of the bonds are not callable, so we you
Okay.
know, if it's 5 years left, we still have to pay for 5 years.
Okay.
And then we would have to appropriate for 5 years free cash to pay that portion. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think I'm thinking of it as like, I've got a student loan, and if I got a chunk of money, I would love to pay that off, but.
Fortunately, municipal
but if
debt
that
does not work that
municipal
way.
debt's a little bit different, so, okay.
But
that's my
we do
question.
plan to use free cash to
do
benefit
that.
Lower Village.
Okay, perfect. That's my question. Thanks.
You're
I
welcome.
wanna say one thing, if there are more questions, if the person asking the question could just identify themselves so that we can have a record of that for our minutes. Thank you.
So this is just a snapshot of just Neshoba and Minuteman and how it impacts the tax rate, because all those debt exclusions, it's hard to sort of see what the total cost of education is. And this breaks it down, so 64% of your tax bill, or $8,000, is going towards the school services. So out of the $12,000 you're paying, $8,000 goes to the school. It is down, it was 66 cents last year, we're at 64 cents per dollar is going towards school. And that was because last year, the general fund municipal budget increased at a higher percentage than the school budget. Even though dollar amount was higher, the percentage shifted a little bit for fiscal '24. So fiscal '25, we can talk about some budget drivers. Here is the way the budget request broke down. We have $35 million, $510,903. I say it's unknown estimated number because I don't have a final Neshoba school number and I won't have it until Thursday. Based on preliminary information, the fiscal '25 budget requests are up $2.4 million from fiscal '24. That was based on sort of very preliminary initial information. Based on last week's Neshoba budget hearing, I would estimate it to be a little bit closer to 1.6 in school increases. I'm sorry, 1.4, bringing the total budget increase to 1.6 million, which is 5% over fiscal '24. The Neshoba increase based on the 3.6 would be 1.2 million. The Minuteman increase would be 179,000. And I'll go into those a little bit more. So here's the pie, again, fairly similar to the way it has been. 67% of the request is education. Then we have the 9, 10, 6, 4, and 4. Which again, is fairly similar to fiscal '24, fiscal '23, and so on. A look at the capital requests. So we got $2.6 million worth of capital requests this year. The large ticket item, as I mentioned, is a fire truck, fire engine, It's actually like a pumper engine. The highway is looking for some, the school is looking for some equipment upgrades. The planning department may withdraw their $450,000 request. They think it might be a little too early. That's the town center design funds, and they think it might be a little too early to go for that based on the presentation they gave. So in a nutshell, we usually pay capital projects with free cash. As I said, we have 3.6 million. Also in free cash, we put money into stabilization, capital stabilization, OPEB. We plan to make investments into Lower Village with the free cash this year. We're not gonna have enough for all these projects. So I am working right now trying to prioritize what is a necessity, what we can push off another year. Later on, I think I finished with some equipment. We're still looking at 2 years on vehicles. If you all saw our March newsletter, we finally got the bucket truck after how many years? We are looking at, town meeting last year approved funding for a new ambulance. It's a 2-year wait for a new ambulance. All highway trucks, the highway truck that we purchased last year with Ford, they canceled the purchase order and decided to give us a higher bill, so then we canceled that. Who knows when we'll get that. We're still waiting on the facilities vehicles that were approved last year. It's just, so trying to figure out, do we appropriate money today? Because by the time the vehicle is ready, we're not gonna have the vehicle that it's replacing, but then we're tying up money for 2 years on a vehicle that we won't have. So sort of weighing those options right now. But we'll get through it. Health insurance, we have a 0% increase this year because we rebid it, and we are joining Maya. So if you'll remember, because Minuteman Neshoba had such high increases, we started looking into that before they decided to shut down Minuteman Neshoba. So when we met with Maya, they are keeping the rates the same across the board. Now, there might be some fluctuation if people decide to change plans, if we hire someone that takes insurance and someone else didn't take insurance. So there's a minimal increase to the budget itself, but the rates have a 0% increase, which is really great for us. Now we can talk about the education budgets. So here's a snapshot of Minuteman High School. The blue line is the total students attending Minuteman. The red line are the member towns and the students that are going from member communities. And the green line are the non-member towns. If you'll recall, over the last few years, Minuteman has decided to no longer allow students from non-member towns to enroll. But the students that were in there were allowed to finish their program. As that green line continues to drop and eventually fade away, more students from member towns will be participating and going to the program, which increases our costs. It's great for us and our students, but it increases our cost. When I started here, we had 19 students going to Minuteman. We have 72 students this year. The thought is if there's a new Neshoba, maybe kids won't switch, they'll stay in Neshoba. I think at the end of the day, Minuteman provides a service that is much needed. They're providing education for kids that can get out in the workforce, they're doing co-op programs. I don't know that that will change much, even with the new high school, but, you know, you will see that line, 686, they're actually over capacity for the school. They're now looking at taking additional sort of vacant buildings on their property and retrofit them into school space. They're looking to bring in new programs. They are negotiating with the new superintendent to start July 1st, so we'll see what her plan is. But as the enrollment increases, it's a higher per pupil cost for us than Neshoba because of the trade component. So just here's a quick snapshot of how it breaks down per grade. So we have 15 seniors graduating, 19 juniors, 16 sophomores, and 22 freshmen. So those 15 will graduate, we'll see what they bring on. As I said, we had 7 new students from last year to this year, so if they add 7, 8 more, we'll see what it brings us. But right now, 72 students is, it's pretty amazing from just a few years ago. Here's a snapshot at the overall preliminary assessment. Stow's change is 6.9% from fiscal 24 to fiscal 29, fiscal 24 to fiscal 25. But if you see the total budget itself for Minuteman only went up 0.82%. But because we have so many more students, the split of the percentages, we pay a bigger share. Just to break down on what the minimum contribution is, the transportation, the debt, and the total assessment for Stow at $2.754 million. So as I said, with the total increase of 0.82%, but the additional students increased ours to just about 7%. When it comes to Neshoba, a lot of this is preliminary. As I said, they won't vote until tomorrow night. This is a snapshot of their 5-year average assessment and the student population. So with Neshoba, we are decreasing every year. We were at 1,138 students a few years ago. We're at 1,055 now. So we are decreasing incrementally. Bolton is fairly average, and then Lancaster has been increasing students.
Can I ask a question? Do you know if that's because the quantity of children in our town is going down, or are children going to other schools?
So last year I got a breakdown of where all students were going. I did not get one this year. I think it's a little bit of both. I think because our increases to Minuteman are higher than our other 2 communities, so we're losing more students a year to Minuteman. And then there's also, we have a number of students going to charter schools, private schools, and being homeschooled. There is a slight dip in just overall population of school-aged children coming into the district, but I think it's more, they're going elsewhere.
Got it, thank you.
Here's how the assessment breaks down. This is the minimum local contribution, so their proposed budget is 69 million and change. They take in 2.6 million in high school debt, local revenue. They're assessing 53 million, and the minimum required contribution is 30 million. Stow's portion of that is 11 million. From there, they have to assess out the $23 million remaining for their budget. And that breaks down like this. So the fixed assessment is the minimum contribution. Then they add that variable assessment for the rest of their budget that they'd like to cover, which is 8.2 million, and then the debt assessment. So as of March 6th, the assessment for Stow would be 20,331,656, or 6.7% increase. Now, 6.7% is a little deceiving because if you look below, the capital debt assessment has increased 381%. In November of last year, Neshoba borrowed $28,930,000 towards the high school project. So they've borrowed the first chunk. The first interest payments of just under $800,000 hit the budget in fiscal 25. So year over year, you will now see that capital debt assessment jumping up in chunks as they're borrowing and starting to make payments on the debt for the new high school project. So looking ahead to fiscal 25, based on the recent assessments, the schools alone are a $1.5 million increase to fiscal 25. The cost to update our facilities and equipment is increasing. We're experiencing work delays, rising costs. Just today, the generator at the police station, it's a $6,000 invoice to fix that. Last week, it was something at Pompo. The water system in this building, so it costs a lot to maintain the buildings, as you know. And when something breaks, it costs even more. So, we're plugging along with our facilities budget, but it's increasing rapidly with the cost of maintaining the facilities. The capital request, we've seen an increase in requests, mainly because, as I mentioned, the fire department doesn't want to wait 2 years to ask for an ambulance when they're really going to need it if there's a 2-year wait. So they're asking for things sooner. We have costs now associated with delays and 2-year wait times. And so it's not a great outlook for us when it comes to capital. The good news, our health insurance is level funded. Our tax collection rate remains high. As much as people don't like to pay, they are paying their taxes, which is great. And then the great news is the municipal general fund budget is within Prop 2.5. So the increases that I will be recommending are within 2.5% for the general fund municipal side. Again, overall, we'll still be looking at a 5 to 6% increase when we get the school numbers. But the town departments did a really great job of really looking at their budgets. We have no new positions on the town side. We have no sort of new initiatives. Last year, we made some investments in adding some staff in mostly public safety. We're where we need to be. So the general fund side is really just salary increases and some minor increases in expenses. So my recommendations, we continue to fund the OPEB trust with $235,000 from free cash. That's what was recommended by our actuary years ago. That we continue to make an annual appropriation to the stabilization account. That we continue to fund the capital stabilization account. As I said, the increase to the municipal general fund side is limited to 2.5% with no additional positions. And one thing that I do is when a position comes vacant, we evaluate the position. Is it where it needs to be? Should it be more hours, less hours? Do we need to fill it? Are there things that we can streamline with efficiency? Is there jobs that we can share? So everything is evaluated to see how we can continue to streamline operations while providing services, much needed services, as to not just, just because we had a position doesn't necessarily mean we need it. So everything is reevaluated to determine the value of it and, whether or not we need to fill that position. That's it for me. Any questions? Any other questions? That's my one.
Thank you.
I have one, actually. Are there vacancies now that you're evaluating for staff positions?
So we are quite lucky. For a period of time, we had a number of vacancies in the highway department, the police department, some council on aging. So we did evaluate those. The highway, we're still sort of determining if we need full-time or part-time in certain roles. But the positions that are vacant now are creating a detrimental effect. But you'll see over our next few agendas, you will be appointing some new police officers, which having a shortage over there has caused some issues. But yes, we have been evaluating them, but the need to fill them is there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Switching gears a little bit. We are going to now have a presentation on annual update on the library.
Yay, we get to talk about libraries now?
Yes.
This is exciting.
Yes. Tina, I'm gonna give you this. Once I go, you can just, do you want me to scroll through or do you want to scroll through?
You can do it if you don't mind.
And then I'm just gonna I see people putting on coats. I had windows open because we're expecting a larger crowd of people cold. Do you want me to shut the window? Anyone?
That's all right, it's ready.
Before you start, I'm just gonna say a couple of words about where we're going. Good. So,
Go for it.
my view of what we're going to talk about in terms of the library is that I look forward to your update on the library and
Yes.
then an update on the renovation project.
That's correct.
And then as time permits in the schedule, I plan to take some public comment. I understand that there may also be people in the audience here that want to speak as part of either the updates or after that. And I will take some public comment from any other members of town that are on the Zoom call or in the audience. I would like respectful debate. I would like an orderly, and I will maintain an orderly flow of brief comments from people, and we will keep it fresh. We won't take too many redundant comments. So, thank you.
Well, good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight to give you this update on the library. As the chair said, I will be talking about the library in the past fiscal year 23, and then I'll move on to the building project update, the history of it, where we're at now, and I will share with you some updated designs. But first I want to talk about how great the library's been. As you can see, we've increased our programming by 31%, which is pretty significant for us. Staff are very inventive in things that they want to add, and this year we added, for instance, hatch a chicken. So we got 7 eggs, hoping some of them would hatch. 4 of them did, and one of the Board of Trustees took them home to raise. So we will be doing that again in April, so we're looking forward to that. We also provide museum passes for the community. 350 passes were used in fiscal 23, which is an enormous increase. Based on the reacquisition of the New England Aquarium, which happens to be very popular. And we also purchased something called Assabet Interactive, which allows patrons to use an online system. So they sometimes don't even have to come to the library, they can do it online. Sarah, one of our staff, has been phenomenal with the seed lending library. Every day she's restocking it already. An 81% participation rate in fiscal 23, so that's pretty impressive. Just as an aside, something I did along with the strategic planner this year was create a new strategic plan. Those have to be submitted to the state every 3 to 5 years in order for us to be eligible for any type of grants. I'm sure some of you have seen we did receive a $20,000 grant this year to serve dyslexics in the community. So that's enabled by the fact that we submit goals to the state for what we want to see in our library for the next few years. Library of Things. I don't know if you guys have heard of Things, but they're non-traditional items that people can check out from the library. Shrewsbury, for instance, rents art that you can put on your wall in your home if you want to. Our biggest things are hotspots, virtual reality headset, ukuleles, and you can see. Lilies. I know. This is funded specifically by the Second Century Fund, and we have been increasing it greatly, as you can see, through the years. So that's one of our most popular collections right now, and we're taking recommendations. So if you can think of anything you'd like to rent, let us know. You can see here, again, we're required by the state to maintain all kinds of statistics in order to get state aid, and state aid is basically free money we get for serving our community. So you can see how many visitors we've had, questions answered, programs and events that we talked about earlier, that attendance there, and we added almost 2,000 items to the collection in fiscal year 23. So you can see here, we talked about residents earlier with Denise. A good amount use their library cards. So that's amazing. A lot, almost half have library cards, so that's even more encouraging. And we've seen a great increase in ebooks and audiobooks, especially due to the pandemic. I think, good or bad, the pandemic made people realize that the library does have all sorts of accessibility. For instance, my son was in Africa and he could use his library card and watch movies, listen to music, read books. So it really does enable people who can't get to the library to use the library on their tablet or their phone. So to compare fiscal year 22 to 23, you can see we increased our library visitors, our museum passes, as I mentioned. Slightly lower than our new patrons added in 22, except that was a 10-year high for us, so I'll take it. 63,000 physical materials circulated, and our physical items added were on the lower side due to two factors. One, that we knew we'd be moving, and two, we increased our online budget for the materials I just spoke about so that people could access things online. Let's see. Okay, financial support. So obviously the town pays our salaries. I have to say, when I started here in December of 2019, my materials budget was $1,000. You try running a library on $1,000. And now that I've been here for a few years, you can see we've increased it a lot. So I'm very appreciative to the town for that. The Randall Library Trust is, the trustees oversee that, and they supplement this materials budget, which has been a huge help. The Hale High Fund pays for our online reference resources that I was talking about earlier. Databases to watch movies, our online and print periodicals. People are still coming to the basement of this building and reading the newspaper almost every day, so they are still used. As I mentioned, Second Century Fund funds special requests such as the Library of Things, and I'd be remiss if I don't mention the Library Friends. They pay for the museum passes, special materials, and as of 2 years ago, started funding adult programs. Adult programs were never funded previously, so we're very appreciative of that. And they're always looking for ways to help supplement our budget if we need it. So before I move on to the project, I just want to share with you two very important things that are happening in library land right now. I'm part of the Massachusetts Library Association Board, and we're working really diligently with our legislators because there's an inability for libraries to access electronic books and digital audiobooks. What am I trying to say? Affordably. And so this bill that Representative Balzer's working with us on is in session right now, so we're really hoping that goes forward. And even more importantly, the next bill is House Bill 4229, which is to try to curb book challenges and protect librarians and educators. I don't know if you've heard, but around the country, lots of books are trying to be banned, and they're holding librarians, some of them criminally accountable for leaving that book on the shelf. And so that's something we want to nip in the bud, obviously. And so you can see in 8 months of 23, the ALA reported 17 attempts to restrict access to books just here in Massachusetts. So as I said, those two bills are now in session, so we're really hoping that they pass come the end of the session. So let's see, in terms of the library, does anybody have any questions before I move on to the project? Funny, I didn't think so, but you never know. All right, let's go. So the history of the Randall Library building project started in 2012 when $3 million was presented. Well, the request for $3 million was asked for at a town meeting, and unfortunately, it didn't pass. There were other things in the debt exclusion, including the fire station. So, okay, that happens, right? Okay, so then at a special town meeting that fall, this is some of what was presented. Water leaks in the building during heavy rains, water damage to the structure. Handicap access is dangerous and also not ADA compliant. There's only a small workroom for storage and materials preparation. As we found out this time around too, feedback from residents indicated a very strong desire to stay in the historic library. But it was noticed that the 1975 edition would have to be replaced, and yearly maintenance costs would continue to rise if it was not. design study results from the 2012 report at town meeting said that structural analysis found that the original 1892 building was in pretty good shape but could use some renovation. But the structural analysis of the 1975 edition found that it was the kind of construction that had a useful life of about 20 to 30 years and that it was in need of structural repairs. So why not renovate the 1975 edition? Because even with the renovation, the building would eventually start leaking again. The quality of the construction would require ongoing maintenance costs and would eventually have to be replaced. So between then and now, though, the Community Preservation Committee allotted funding for the renovation of the historic building. And this list is just some of the things that were done to renovate the 1892 building. So chimney repair, the kitchenette was removed and replaced with a storage room. Windows were renovated, that kind of thing. So the historic building still is in great shape. So now we're into current times, and a new building committee was formed in October of 2020 to possibly pursue a renovation again. Plans were presented at the 2022 May town meeting, and a $6.7 million debt exclusion was asked of the taxpayers, an additional $2 million from the community preservation funds and 2 library trusts. The presentation to 2022 town meeting was based on preliminary information, and all we had at that point were preliminary drawings and preliminary estimates. You can get this online as well, but this was the funding summary presented in 2022. As you can see, the maximum taxpayer cost is listed at 6.7 with an overall project cost of $8.85 million. This was the addition presented at 2022. To the right are all the spaces that were outlined through public forums, community feedback, survey boards, everything that we presented to the community to allow them to tell us what they wanted to see in a 21st century library. So ultimately, the program and building size summary C was decided upon with usable square footage of 6,700 to 7,200 square feet. And I won't read it all verbatim, but at the 2022 annual town meeting vote, they voted to approve $8.85 million for the project, with $1 million of that coming from community preservation, split between a lump sum of $300,000 and $700,000. And also trust funds, the Randall Library Trust committed $500,000 and the Hale Fund committed $400,000. And any other that's okay, and donations would help, not with, would offset any taxpayer money. So my questions were, did town meeting vote on a design? And the answer is no. Did town meeting vote on square footage? And the answer is no. Did town meeting vote on program space? And the answer is no. What town meeting did vote was on to renovate the historic portion of the building and to remove and rebuild the 70s edition. That's what was voted on. In 2022, town meeting passed 186 to 26, and at the ballot, it overwhelmingly passed on a vote of 602 to 285. And that is my stomach even though I ate. Again though, with all of these escalating costs, it was still over budget. And the town administrator asked for the voters to approve more money for the project, and it was voted again overwhelmingly 379 to 87 votes. I do want to mention that we're also hearing with cost escalations that it's a lot of the freight costs are causing a lot of increases because more cargo fees are being charged to ships who are crossing canals, and those cost increases or escalations are up 5 to 10%. So any materials that we need to get via shipping are going to go up in price. So here we are again today. The maximum taxpayer cost is still at 6.7, and this has not changed. This will be the maximum taxpayer cost for the project going forward. And this is the project that was presented at town meeting preliminarily. It still contains all of the spaces that was asked for by the community and that we put into the design. So I go back to what was presented in 2022, and that was a usable square footage of 6,700 to 7,200 square feet. The current design is at 6,980 square feet. And that doesn't include the attic, by the way. So, did the taxpayer cost change? It did not. Did the program and staff space change? It did not. And did preliminary square foot estimates change? It did not. And I would be remiss to say that I did this alone in a silo because the staff have been heavily committed to this project and have been buoying me up most of the time lately. They were instrumental in moving the library. We closed October 6th and staff along with volunteers packed up 35,000 items in 4 days. And then we reopened October 31st downstairs. They have regular calls and meetings with Design Lab, and their feedback has been and will continue to be incorporated into any designs that affect their work. And I didn't want to just speak alone, so Chris, the children's librarian, said that she would give her input.
Chris Morrison, 95 Crescent Street, and I just want to agree with Tina. We had amazing opportunities to give feedback and input on this program, this design, and that's probably why I love it still. I understand that people are disappointed that there are some sacrifices that were made, but overall it's going to be so much better and it's going to be a great facility for the town. And 2 years ago, was it, I moved my desk up into the historic part of the building, which, correct me, Tina, is that a third of the square footage of the overall library? Something, it's got to be between a third and a half. It's a big part of the square footage. It's beautiful space, it's full of light, it has historic character, it's generous. And day after day, it sits empty. It has no function. Nobody uses that space. Maybe a couple of hours a day, you can do one thing at a time in that space. So it seems to me that the fiscally prudent thing to do would to be use the square footage we already have and make it work. And that's what Design Lab is doing. They have proposed sound barriers, but not light, like glass partitions between the various spaces in the community room. They've done, I could go on and on about how much I hate doing programming in that space right now, but certain common sense infrastructure things like accessible sink with counter space, cabinet storage, closet storage, and I think we could have a historical part of the building that works hard all day long. People doing different things with flexible furniture. We don't need a Victorian parlor in the town of Stow. It's lovely. It has no function in 2024. And that part of the library can't hold books, so it should do programming. And I think it can do it really well, especially given what Design Lab has proposed.
Thank you. So as of September of '23, the project went out to bid with bid results pricing yet another $2 million over budget. So to remain true to our commitment to what we said we would do for the taxpayers, the building committee members value managed, made cuts, and produced a design that would be produced within the voted budget. The town hired 2 additional different cost estimators this time around, and they will reconcile with Design Lab's cost estimator to review the most recent plans to remain in budget. Estimated escalation costs are around 2% per month. The project assumes a 4% increase based on figures in March, and the contract being finalized in May. So if the project is further delayed, we begin to start having to jeopardize more spaces again. To recap, you can see previously in September 2012, lack of usable space, lack of staff workspace, water leak remediation, asbestos in the, I misspelled that, HVAC ductwork of the historic building. We still aren't ADA compliant. We still have one closet underneath the stairs. And obviously the separate spaces for all people to use in the library of all ages. What's new since 2012, it rains in the children's room, so there's a semi-permanent tarp on the inside of the children's area. The roof leaked to the first floor electrical panel, and that caused a short with a fire response. Fortunately, there was no fire, but the building filled up with some smoke. The roof leak in the wall of the renovated second floor historic space. The beam that connects the two buildings has always leaked, but now the ceiling is starting to flake and come off. Asbestos was found in the joint compound in the 1970s addition walls, and there's mold on exterior walls due to the leaks. And these are just some pictures. So the left-hand side is the electrical panel. The center is the beam that I just spoke of. To the right of that is the flaking, and that you can see goes onto the books that we shelve. And it's kind of hard to see, but the top picture is the tarp that's in the children's room. So here's the updated design that Design Lab came up with for this time around. This is the west elevation looking from Library Hill toward the old historic entrance, which will be re-implemented. So that's now like the half window. And then here's another view if you were coming down Common Road, although you won't really see too much of that because it'll be more obscured with landscaping, hopefully. And there's the entrance to the new addition.
I think I missed one.
No, I think there's three.
Oh,
Southeast, west, and then the inside. So then the inside, lower level, which is coming up, yes, some spaces were moved, but as I said earlier, all the spaces that the community requested, as did staff, are still there. There may be on a little bit of a smaller scale, but there's still meeting space, there's still teen space and children's space and adult space, computer space. And that's the upstairs children's collection with a program room and quiet reading. So just to end, I'd like to say that, someone said to me when I started this job, what do you want to do a building project for? And I'm like, oh, it's exciting. Don't ever do it. It's been a challenge. But I love libraries. Obviously, I'm biased. It's what I do. And this community deserves a 21st century library. We are struggling to give people the services that they need. And it's the only place that everybody can go for free. So I'll just leave you with the fact that there were 3 votes, 2 building committees, but there's only 1 library. And the time is now. It's time to build Randall. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So other folks that work or are part of the library organization, can I just see a show of hands of who might like to speak in that group?
I don't want to speak.
Library. Want to speak, okay.
Can you clarify who you mean by people associated with the library?
Sorry. That was poorly put. Thank you. Either library staff or library trustees or members of one of the library building committees.
Okay.
Of whatever number or so. Great. And in the room, other folks that would like to speak who are not in that former group. Great, thank you. And online, folks that might like to speak. From here, I cannot see any hand.
So Kelly Lawler has raised her hand. That is the only hand thus far.
Good, so I feel like at the moment, we have time for that, and I am happy to indulge.
I might wanna speak, it depends.
Great,
To
understood.
be determined.
So I will start with Kelly, because she's on Zoom.
Hello, let me just take my hand down. Okay, hi. My name is Kelly Lawler and I live at 170 Hudson Road. And I just am blown away by this select board meeting. I mean, to hear that report by our chair, our town administrator, Denise, and then also to hear from Tina, our library. I mean, to grow programming so much when you're so restricted, and to get so many volunteers to help you actually move that much the library, from one location to another. Like, thank you for your hard work, for your determination. This is not easy work. And I just want to really thank you and applaud you for all the work that you have done. I did just send a letter. I saw the notes from the last select board meeting. I was not able to attend, and I just saw that people, there was a comment about not being happy with the project. And so, I like to do my homework, and I went through and reviewed the Library Building Committee meeting 2.0 on February 7th. I think it was just 6 days before the last select board meeting on February 13th. And I am just going to summarize what I saw. And I sent this in an email to the select board, so it's in your public meeting notes, your packet. The committee talked about plans aiming to make it more cost effective and efficient, understanding the cost concerns. They mentioned a target date for bidding and explained their efforts to redesign the building within budget constraints. I heard the committee in their last meeting raising concerns about the cost estimates, the need for flexibility in the design, the urgency of addressing the deteriorating state of the current building. The discussion also touched on the impact of neglecting municipal buildings over time and the challenges of managing costs and timelines in the renovation process, which we've heard from Tina and Denise tonight. The meeting concludes with the plan to gather feedback and potentially schedule additional workshops. I think that this clearly says and shows and illuminates to the town that our tax dollars are at work with the government officials that we have, with the elected officials that we have working for this wonderful library to build us something that works within our means. We're not asking to be any other town. We just want to be Stow. And I think that that's worth supporting. So I sent my email and I'm here to support this library renovation project. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan,
I'm just the messenger.
please proceed.
I'm reading this statement, that was prepared on behalf of my wife Debbie Woods. She couldn't attend tonight because she's actually on the planning board and at a planning board meeting. When I asked the question if residents felt that the select board should bring the library renovation project back to town meeting, I did not know what the answer would be. I was surprised by the overwhelming support from people not in my orbit. Support came from all parts of town and demographics. The consistent message I heard was, select board, do your job. The process is flawed. Too much money for too little additional space. I appreciate the library building committee posting lots of information and documents on the library website. However, posting documents does not replace or negate residents' voices or comments. The select board and the library committee will continue to spin the information, but there is no denying when a project decreases from 7,500 to 5,500 usable square feet, a 25% decrease, the project is fundamentally different. Yes, a lot of work has been done and money spent, but the fact is the residents and taxpayers of Stow are the ones paying for the project. The Select Board and the Library Committee owe the residents the courtesy and respect of being heard. It's the right thing to do. The warrant remains open. The Select Board always has the option to reopen a closed warrant. If the Select Board decides to move ahead with the current library project without the proper opportunity for the residents to ask questions and voice their opinions, I will execute a citizen's petition and call a special town meeting. I will not turn my back on the people I've talked to, as well as those who signed the petition. Executing a citizen's petition is not an ideal way to proceed, as it is an unnecessary cost to the town. The Select Board can avoid the citizen's petition and additional cost by bringing the project back to the annual May town meeting. That's the end of Deb's statement.
Thank you. Ms. Hillman.
Morgan Hillman, 64 Crescent Street. I'm gonna pull up my notes because I spoke yesterday off the cuff and it didn't go well.
Yes, it did.
I accused my husband of forcing me to golf. I am on the Library Board of Trustees. I'm on the building committee for the renovation project. Members of the town staff and other community volunteers have been working on this project since 2020, 2021, and on this much needed project, which everybody knows about now. We did solicit feedback from the public on multiple occasions, and the vote to approve the funding passed overwhelmingly at town meeting twice. So now, 3 or more years into this round, and decades after the last round that was desperately needed but pushed off, and we've spent $750,000, it's not the time to stop or just stop progress being made. I understand and I agree completely at how disappointing it is to have a smaller footprint than what currently exists, or how it doesn't look like our original vision, which, as Tina pointed out, was shown for inspiration, not approval. And how depressing it has been to make cut after cut to the plan to accommodate the rising costs and the labor shortages and the difficulty getting approved bidders to bid on the project, which is, you know, mighty to us, but small potatoes to many contractors. It's nothing short of heartbreaking, so I empathize with the frustrated voices in our town. However, that doesn't change the fact that we desperately need and want a new library for the staff, for the patrons, for the community. And it doesn't change its efficacy, as the new building still incorporates all of the functions it set out to in an inviting and beautiful and energy efficient way. What we cannot cut are the building safety code necessities, a fire suppression system, which was quoted at $1 million, a well that is built not where PFAs are in the ground, accessible ramps and elevators. This compromises a huge chunk of the overall cost estimation. It's easy for a bystander to measure by footprint. It's not easy to measure functionality. But that's what our partners at Design Lab continue to deliver for us, despite how often we have to revise the plans. So I really do feel everyone's frustration, but I remain in full support of the revitalized Randall project. I often hear residents sort of flexing how long they've lived in Stow as a reason to weight their opinion more heavily. I'm only a 5-year resident, but I plan to be an active community member for many years to come, and hope to help continue shaping the change from our sleepy Appletown to a thriving, vibrant, and literate community. Thank you.
Ms. Farah.
Thank you. Kathy Sparrow, 74 West Acton Road. And I had a few prepared remarks, but I feel like I'll just end up repeating things that have already been said. So I'll just say this. I am really excited about the imminent library project, and I'm very disappointed by the current petition effort. You know, my town library was a huge factor for me growing up as a very shy, introverted child. You might not believe it, but it is true. You know, it was a place where my curiosity was encouraged. I had this world of books that I could explore. I learned music. It was a quiet space that I could be and really kind of explore a lot of things as a child. And I think today's kids, adults, and families deserve nothing less. And even though we voted, as it's been said, overwhelmingly 3 times in favor of this project, it feels like there's a concerted effort by some people who are not in favor of the project at the last town meeting and spoke against it to bring it back to town meeting so that it can be defeated. And I am disappointed about that. I think there's a false narrative being created that the project was not what town meeting approved, that it's, the fundamentals of the design are no longer there. We've heard that's not true. So I would urge the select board to move forward with this project, encourage the staff to move forward with all due haste. And, I sit in this building every day and I see the creativity that Tina and Chris are bringing to this space, trying to run a library here. I think they'll do amazing things in the new space. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't know your name?
Sunny Richardson. I live at 171 Red Acre Road. I am a library trustee and I'm on the building committee. I apologize for wearing my sunglasses at night, being like a walking 80s song. But I have like very light sensitive eyes, so oftentimes when it's bright at night I do wear sunglasses. But for the purpose of people being able to actually see me, I'll take everything off briefly. I have about 2 minutes of commentary here that are a little more unique, I think, than what we've heard, so I'll just start there. My purpose here is to give you an understanding of the importance of trust and community as it relates to current events. As a member of the Library Randall Building Committee, I'd like to share my experience. It's a volunteer position, unpaid, and a commitment of 2 years. Several hours of work go into sitting on this board attempting to develop a grand vision for the Randall Library. There was little interest in the library project once the committee began to convene until recently, when the devastating news that bids for the project exceeded the budget, which I will add absolutely devastated all of the invested committees. Social media lit up with hateful rhetoric a year after this project began and intensified after the news. False accusations of misconduct, in addition to several forms of blatant misinformation, arose, sowing mistrust among the ill-informed. What I find most troubling is that when it was the appropriate time for input and time to show up, time to speak clearly and loudly and democratically, when input was publicly, vigorously solicited, there was silence. Keep in mind that any town volunteers being mischaracterized are human beings, fellow neighbors in our community, and a dehumanized abstract concept, and not a dehumanized abstract concept solely residing in the ether of the internet. Trust is critical to the success of any tight-knit community. I ask of you to ponder, do we really think that a volunteer who has dedicated so much of themselves goes into their service ill-intended? Trust is the foundation of progress. Trust that because these volunteers exhibit steadfast dedication and have the knowledge and expertise, that they are the best people to make the most well-informed decision on behalf of the townsfolk. Trust in your neighbor, that they too want what's best for not only your family, but their own. The collective linchpin of trust in modern society lies within our American democratic process. This project was voted on at least twice by the town and passed. Considering anything other than moving ahead at this point would be unconscionable on behalf of the taxpayer. In summary, I'm speaking to every resident of Stow when I say, get to know the volunteers. Immerse yourself. Get to know your neighbor and treat them as though they care, because I can assure you that every Stow volunteer cares a great deal for this community. In conclusion, it's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Thank you.
Who did I miss? Ms. Grund.
Okay, I just have brief comments. My name is Sandra Grund, 17 Timber Edge Road. I am in support of the library project. Listening to the comments today, I heard from Deb's statement that she had heard from various residents that there was negative feedback regarding the project. But it was somewhat vague in terms of how many people had responded. I didn't feel like there was solid facts associated with that, or numbers that we could truly understand if this was a large amount or just an opinion, which I think was the opposite of what we heard from the library, which was a very thorough presentation with solid facts. It presented documented information about the process and really shows that the library and the town is moving forward to make sure that is following what the residents already overwhelmingly supported and voted for through a democratic process. And so if you don't, if you go against what happened through that process, you just can't keep asking for the same process to happen to try and get a different result. And I think that, what the library and the town is doing is really carrying through with what the residents want. So I think some of the things that personally stand out to me are the ADA access, having accessibility for people. I think one of the largest population numbers is 65 and above in town. You can't get to the second floor and access it. It's, we have this beautiful space up there that would be such a shame to not keep and renovate, and we're not using it for all these extraordinary programs that I know the library staff could just, are already doing and just could run with, because I've been a resident for a long time and think they're, have always just felt like it was the staff were really making that library come to life and doing the most they could with the resources that they had. So, I just wanted to say I'm fully in support of this project, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan, there's someone on that hasn't spoken yet on Zoom. Ms. Spataro?
Hello, thank you. I'm a library friend and a volunteer at the library, and I have 4 children who use the library probably, 32,000 times of the 34,000 times it was used over the course of the year. And I just wanted to say thank you to the Select Board for their generous time in making this a hearing when they did not need to do that. I think that's important, and that people need to feel that even though their ideas are perhaps illegal, perhaps out of turn, that they're still being listened to. And I really thank you for being open to hearing everyone's ideas on this, and just another resident in support of the library and all of the volunteers who have worked so hard for 5 years now to try to make this happen. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Pierce on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. I'm partially in favor of this project, and I want to explain why. But I first want to make full public disclosure. I'm not someone who uses the library a lot. I pick up books there for my wife, 12, 15 times a year. But I drive by the library, 150 times a year. So I'm speaking from the perspective of a community resident who is looking at the viewscape of our center part of town. And as I look at the latest renderings of the outside of the building, that's the problem. I'm very pleased at the hard work the committees have put in redesigning the project to try to make it fit within the budget. I think they've done a terrific job of that. I'm not complaining about the inside. I think it's the outside that needs to have a second look. Right now, the new design for the part of the building that will be new is reminiscent of a trailer. It's not the red brick of the rest of the building. It's obviously not the kind of trailer you would see parked up against, Hale Middle School when they didn't have enough space, but it's reminiscent of that. It's a flat roof, and it looks a little bit like a double wide trailer. I wish there was something that could be done to change the appearance of that part of the building, because I think what's going to happen over time is we're not going to be happy with that. I think, in fact, it might actually make us a little bit sad when we drive by. I know when we driving to the other communities and towns, we see libraries that have very nice aesthetic appeal. They're aesthetically pleasing, but this building is gonna be a little bit of a shock every time you drive by it and look at it. So people who worked on this project, you did a great job. I don't want to criticize any of you. I think you made the project on the inside a terrific one, but the budget cutting, if you look at the original renderings and then look at what we've now got, there's quite a big change there. And I don't know what you can do about that, but I just wish we had a better looking library at the end of the day.
Thank you. So Mr. Bryan and
I was
then,
gonna address that.
it's okay, you can address it afterwards. He had his hand up.
One of the things that, I'm speaking on behalf of myself at this point. My wife doesn't let me put words into her mouth. But I really applaud the library building committee for trying to bring the stuff down. I think you guys all have the best intentions. I love the library, I'm a card carrying library goer. And I think you guys are trying to do the right thing. But I think that the project has changed enough from what was originally voted on at town meeting that it warrants the select board taking it back and asking the town if this is what you want for this price. You gathered the information, put it up there. If I'm hearing correctly, I'll probably vote for it, but I still think it needs to be brought back. I was on the board when we did the Pompo Community Center. One of the things that we did is we actually were $1 million under budget then. We had told everybody, we're not putting a new roof on here to save money. We came in $1 million under budget, we took it back, we had the money, we took it back to town meeting to ask everybody if it was okay if we spent the money, even though it was in our budget. We didn't have to. It was a moral obligation we felt to take it back and ask the town. So that's all that's being asked for right now. Have a public forum, the select board can put it onto the warrant very easily, and it'll probably be an up or down vote at town meeting, but everybody will know what they're paid for. It's that simple. Thanks.
Thank you.
And again, I really do appreciate everything, all the volunteers in town do.
Melissa Rollins, 18 Carriage Lane. I'm on the exterior design committee for the library. I want to first address Mr. Free's comments about the exterior of the building. This is not the time to discuss that. The time to discuss that was months ago when you were invited to attend some of the exterior design, all of the public library building committee meetings. And also that the renderings provided by Design Lab, unless you're at the meetings and able to listen to them discuss the renderings, you can't really understand how things are gonna look. Those renderings were thrown together within the last several weeks because of the cuts that had to be made. It's not fair to assess the outside of the building based on those renderings, and also it's not the time to do that. As far as bringing the vote back, I think Tina addressed the fact that everything that was voted on is still current and nothing has changed enough for this to be brought back for a new vote. That's all.
Thank you. Are there other people online or in the room that would like to comment? Members of the board?
We've been
Looks sitting
on our hands.
Well, thank you. Okay, Ingeborg's hand was up first, JT's next.
You can go first.
Megan?
I'll go third.
Yep.
Madam Chair, on the presentation tonight, what was presented, as far as the design is concerned, in and of itself, it really hasn't changed. But more importantly to me, and I think I have a learned colleague at the other end of the table that would agree. To turn around and bring this back again for process is really setting an extremely dangerous precedent in this town. Does that now mean that if we do this, someone can bring back the school and vote on that? Or someone can bring back issues and seeing how the money has been spent on future renovations and updates to our community center. I don't feel that that's something we should be doing. The town has spoken. The town has spoken quite clearly and quite loudly. The comments that were read to us by Deb Woods, as far as different factions of town and individuals talking to her, I can assure you over the past 3 weeks, I've had more comments made from individuals in town, in excess of probably 100 people. Out of the 100 people, I've only had 2 that had negative comments. To me, that is not a large majority. Granted, it's not every town person, but it's a reasonable enough sampling. As far as I'm concerned, individuals do feel the time is now, let's get on with it. This has gone on long enough. It's been to town. We've had actually 3 different votes on it, and it has been approved at town meeting as well as at the polls. I am not and will not vote to have this put back onto the warrant. And I'm setting that out now.
Thank you. Ms. Higham-Clark?
I heard what might be confusing information. In your presentation, you presented data that indicated that nothing had significantly changed. Interior square footage or function. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
Whereas Ms. Wood's statement indicated that there was at least a 2,000 to 3,000 square foot difference in functional square footage. Further, her statement indicated that the library committee or the library or the board of selectmen would continue to spin the data. Spin was the word used. And to your point, we are all neighbors. And I have also been spoken with. I had also heard there was a petition, but no petition has been presented to us tonight. So I think there's been, as one speaker indicated, some misinformation. And I agree with my colleague here that I don't see any evidence whatsoever that the project has not progressed in the manner which the town expected, and that I further agree there should be no delay on this. We've delayed, we've had other projects have priority over this. I too worked in my public library all through high school. It was one of the best times of my life, and I will support this project. I will continue to support it, and I don't feel comfortable with the request and the manner of the request that's been made tonight by Ms. Woods. So that's what I will vote, not to support that.
Thank you. Ms. Birch McMichael.
Hi. So I would like to echo the comments of my 2 colleagues, Mr. Toole, Ms. Higham-Clark. I don't know if you saw, I got a little teary when you spoke, Sunny.
I know.
Thank you.
Sorry. We are all neighbors. And, oh, sorry. To see some of the names that we have been called online for volunteering our time to be in this room to make decisions for the taxpayers, for the people who show up at town meeting and vote, who show up at the polls and vote. And that is our job. And I feel strongly about upholding that. I will not be threatened by a special town meeting if I don't make the decision to bring this back. If Ms. Woods would like to stand on that threat and do that, that's fine. That is absolutely her democratic right. That's gonna cost the town some money. That could probably be spent other places. But that is fully her choice and her decision. I have said this to various of my colleagues. I will not vote for bringing this back. Everyone has spoken at this point. The time, I mean, this has been years. Like, if you hated what it looked like, you had 1,000 chances to send an email to our board, to send an email to the library, to do all of these things. To be pulling this at the last minute, I mean, you can pull it, but I can't, I'm not going to support it. Anyway, it's now 9:00 at night, so I'm done talking, I'm done crying, I'm done all of it, but I just want to tell you, I will continue to support the library. I am a bookseller. I am a girl who used to take out 20 books at a time as an elementary school. It is such an important place in our community. My children love to come. I feel like it is a safe space, and I am so appreciative for all of the work that all of you have done. So thank you.
So I have heard a lot of opinions as well, and my confusion comes from what really boils down to the square footage of the library, which, as you pointed out, was not on the warrant. What the town voted for was, what the end result was, $8.5 million to rebuild the library, get the roof repaired, stop it from leaking into the electrical room, stop the asbestos from dropping all over the place, get a real roof, and increase the usable space. What was presented at town meeting for the project was what was hoped for, is what you said, the size.
Yes.
Just to clarify, for my own understanding, what is the current space of the library, usable space? What was presented at the 22 town meeting, and where is the current project going?
Sure. So that's kind of a loaded question.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the current square footage, if I have this, is in the 8,000s, correct?
I'd have to pull up the exact number, so we have the usable square footage now at
69 something?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was looking for usable square footage,
Right.
not storage and everything.
Right.
So the hangup is the square footage, in my opinion, because right now in the library, the way the 70s edition was built is it's a wide open space. And if you're upstairs, you can hear downstairs, vice versa. There's no quiet space anywhere. So typically, if Children's is holding a program, I can't have a program because there's no flexible space that way. And as Chris alluded to, in the new building, or the renovated historic building, there would be partition doors and soundproofing so that we could use the space in a different manner. The 70s edition would be torn down and replaced with flexible space and contained space so that it can be used by multiple people at multiple times. So that answers part of it. The square footage part is again, this is where we
Just don't have it in front of me.
what we presented at town meeting was a range of between 67 and 7,200 as what we would build, and our current design as of this last month was 6,900.
So still within scope of what was presented.
So the number that was presented in, I'm skipping, sorry,
No, go ahead.
in Ms. Wood's letter was something like 5,000 something.
5,500, which I think is a number I've seen floating around on the internet. I don't remember what the Stow Independent reported, but I had gotten quite a few times the impression that what is going to be built now is vastly smaller than what was proposed to be built, but from what I'm hearing, it's not. It's still within the scope of what was actually presented.
Yes. There were options, there were 3 options presented at town meeting. Some were on the larger scale. Then there was a middle, and then there was the smallest. And the smallest is what we had decided on, and that's what we're building, correct? Am I saying
That was your
correctly?
presentation, A, B, C.
Right.
Okay.
May so I just wanna, I think part of the difficulty was, first of all, I wanna clarify, town meeting is the legislative body of this town. They do not vote on projects. They do not vote on designs, they do not vote on specifications, they do not vote on square footage. The comparison would be that Kate Hogan is looking at bridge designs before the state legislature authorizes funding for a project. It doesn't happen. Our town meeting is the same as that body. They don't, their job is to say, yes, we support it, here's the money. So I do want to clarify that going back to town meeting cannot negate a ballot question. The town has voted on the ballot to support and pay for this project. Going back to town meeting, the only thing that could be done is to rescind the funding, which then you would still have to pay for what has already been expended and contracted. So I don't really understand the going back to town meeting, where town meeting has voted twice and the ballot, again, town meeting can't overrule a ballot question. As Tina pointed out, town meeting doesn't vote on square footage, they don't vote on design, they don't vote on what it looks like. It was conceptual designs of here's what we hypothetically think it will look like, here's what we expect it to look like. From that time, the building committee, the community input, forums, the design that went out to bid originally was 9,500 square feet. Quite frankly, that's when this should have been outrage. It should have said what was presented was around 6,700 and now you're at 9,500 square feet. That was the problem, and yes, that was our fault because we took all the feedback from the community and said, this is the building they want. It was not realistic and it was not affordable. So now we've had to scale that back into, what is feasible for this project. The current usable space I have is 7,100 square feet. So that is the current building and usable space. I think, I'm sorry, maybe it's 40, I need to actually double check that because.
It's divided between the 2 buildings too,
Yes,
which
it's
is what
between the
makes
2
it
buildings.
difficult.
So, the 9,500, again, it was not feasible. So, yes, we've scaled it back. As Tina pointed out, the programming space that was presented as the possible design and all of the possible options are still in there today, even with the scaled back project. Even if Tina mentioned on town meeting floor, we're looking at a 7,000 square foot building. That was not in the vote, that was not in the article, that was not what town meeting's capacity to vote on is. They cannot vote on square footage. That is outside of the scope of the legislative body of this community. So I do just want to keep this whole thing of going back and it's not what we voted for. If you read the actual motion, it was to design, construct, and build. It was design, construct, renovate the historic building, and build a new addition. Those 4 things are still what's happening. It could look completely different. Quite frankly, it could be 5,000 square feet, and we're still within design, renovate, construct, build. That's still the scope of town meeting's vote, that's still the scope of this project. So I want to lay that out there as town meeting's authority. Again, you can take the funding back, then you have to pay for the contracts we've paid, we still have to do something with the library, it's still falling apart, it's not solving any problems. That's it. Town meeting can't say we don't want this project to happen. That's outside the scope of the legislative authority. That cannot happen by town meeting. That's not their, town council will tell you that. The president of KP Law called me when I said there's this phantom petition being circulated. She was like, again, that's like Congress voting on the Army Corps of Engineers design plans and specifications. They don't look at that. They say, you want to build a bridge? Here's the money. That's what our town meeting does. You want to build a library? Here's the money. So the square footage, we can clarify because there have been different iterations of the project. I sat in yesterday a 3.5 hour reconciliation meeting, and 6,930 square feet was the number that we are at with the redesigned building.
And I thank you for all those figures, because it does clarify a lot of things to me, because there's been a lot of information going on about, and that's the main point, is people seem to think that we were promised a beautiful Taj Mahal, and now some people think we're getting a Reed's Ferry shed. So,
They're still pretty good.
Those could be very nice, actually.
they're good sheds, but not what you want in a library. But from what I'm hearing, the changes to the actual construction are not that different from what was presented. What happened was more was asked for after town meeting, and that's what got shot down.
Well, it didn't get shot down, that's what came in over bid.
Well,
Yeah.
to me, that's
Yeah.
bullet holes in their tail cone, no matter what.
Yes, but
which
had
way
we
you look
built
at
a
it.
9,500 square foot building, there would have been no complaints. Because people would
Trust
have
me, there
said,
would have been
people
complaints
would have said,
because
you,
there's.
you built a bigger building in the same budget.
But I also want to acknowledge, and the volunteers and the staff and everything that has been done has been remarkable, and I, as a volunteer sitting at this side of the table, recognize how much work goes into doing these things. And it does, pardon my French, suck when people tell you what an idiot you are because you didn't do the things the way they wanted to. But I also want to acknowledge the voice of the residents who are footing this bill, who had the information that they were getting a Taj Mahal and now are not. But we have clarified that the Taj Mahal was not promised, and they are getting close to what was voted on originally, or what was presented at town meeting. What was voted on was the money. I don't understand what the process is to rescind or change the project, but I don't think that's necessary right now. But what I do think is we need more opportunities for people to come out and speak. It's after 9 o'clock now. I imagine many people have ended their day and may not be able to speak, but maybe having a forum where this information is once again presented and people have the opportunity to come out and talk and ask questions and understand the scope of the project is pretty much the same. The repairs of the building, what needs to be done to the building still needs to be done to the building. Because it sounds like even if we take back the money, we're gonna pay for the expenses we've already paid for, and we're still gonna have a building that really can't be used that well. And what can you use a building with a tarp for a ceiling? It's not very practical. So we still need to fix the building. So is it possible to have 1 or 2 more public forums for the residents to be able to come out, ask their questions, and get the correct information, not what's floating out on the internet?
Sorry, do you want to speak?
Do you have a comment?
I have a strong feeling that they have done all of the public forums. At this point, I feel like if people were not paying attention, Hector, we don't need to have 47 more listening sessions. So that's my feeling. And now you.
And actually, I echo what you're saying.
Okay,
Through the whole process,
do ask to speak.
Yes.
sorry, Madam Chair. May I continue?
Briefly,
Thank you.
if you're echoing a sentiment, let's try to keep the conversation fresh so that we can
Go and move.
finish.
I was just gonna add that, there were numerous public forums on every aspect of this design through the process in the past 2 years, Hector. And as the issues of size came to light because the wish list just wasn't gonna be able to happen, that was publicly put out. People chose not to attend. People chose not to show up. That was their choice. Well, guess what? There's consequences to your choices and your actions. And in this case, we don't need any more public forums. That information was already put out there numerous times, which I went to some of those meetings to find out exactly what was going on. So they had ample opportunity through the process as it came to reality. So I don't feel public forum is necessary at this point.
Okay, thank you. Denise?
I just wanted to say, I appreciate the sentiment. I would say, I think that time has passed. If people felt they couldn't get information from the library building committees, residents have attended the library trustee meetings and asked questions. People have attended my monthly office hours and asked questions. I don't feel that we should be responding to Facebook rumors by public forum. The factual information is out there. We have this presentation that will be out there. I do want to clarify, and I'm gonna say something that Tina was too nice to say. People that are circulating comments on Facebook and starting to get people riled up never went to town meeting, because I have the list, never voted in the election, because I have the list, and some of them don't have library cards, which means they don't use the library at all. So I feel like the people that are trying to stop this project now have been against the project from the beginning, and they're just seeing a small weakness that they can try and get into and trying to raise 3 votes of the town. I think, again, I understand there might be confusion, but we're not creating the confusion. The social media is creating the confusion. I don't know where some of this information is coming from. I don't know how some of these things took on a life of their own. We have a page dedicated to, you want to talk about transparency, there's not a more transparent board than the library building committees. Everything is out there. The invoices we pay, every video is out there, the presentations are out there. We put press releases out there. Everything is on one page in our website for people that want that information. If they choose not to, or say we need public forums because we don't want to watch those meetings or we don't want to come, I just feel like they've had those opportunities, and like I said, outside of the building committee, they could call the trustees. They could come and meet with me. I had people last week come and meet with me about the project. Information has been there if they've wanted to get it, and I think that this is just an attempt to stop a project that they weren't supportive of in the beginning, unfortunately.
Can I follow up?
Briefly?
Okay. I understand what you're saying as far as the people that more than likely who are against the project, were always against the project, and that's fine. My concern is for the people that aren't speaking up but are just hearing the confusion. And I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to clarify whatever confusion they may have. Most of the confusion has only been recently because of all the information that's been going on around the general size of the square footage of the library. And I even heard one comment where someone attended one of the library meetings and wasn't afforded the ability to speak. I want to make sure people have a chance to speak and express their opinions. Do they have that now, moving forward, regardless of what has happened in the past? Moving forward, do they still have an opportunity to express their opinions, raise their questions, and discuss the issue?
So no, not at the building committee stage. I mean, we are a project-based committee. We're not a committee like everybody else. We solicited the feedback, we took the form as information, now we have to build a project. The public feedback section of the library building project has ended. If we took public input at every meeting, we'd never get a project done, because we'd have questions, then there might be a question to redesign, we redesign. Every time we redesign, I'm paying people to redesign, we're paying engineers. At some point, we had to say, okay, we've heard everything we need to hear. Now we need to build it. So we've moved past that. People can attend, people can listen, but there has not been public comment for that purpose. We've moved into a new phase of this project, and that is building. We're no longer gathering feedback.
I'm done.
I didn't mean it that way. Yes, Ms. Hill.
Just to say, the library trustees, which is, separate from the building committee but has ambassadors that serve on it, have open meeting every month, and we do everything we can in addition to all the information that's posted on the town website to share updates and to encourage people to attend. So while we may not be able to I can't guarantee that we would do anything with feedback, there is a monthly forum, and we care very much about the reputation of the library, and we relay comments. So Denise is right about the project itself and moving forward, but there is, once a month, there is always a minimum of that meeting where people can come and ask questions or share their feedback and thoughts about the library. And we do have people come on occasion, but it's not like this. So there are continued opportunities for people to be heard.
The select board meetings are usually not.
Oh, come on, it's fun to have an audience.
But it is good to hear. And when are the library trustee meetings?
First Tuesday of the month.
Great. So people do have an opportunity to go to the library trustee meeting and express any concerns. It's not gonna change the building, just like we take public comment at the beginning of our select board meeting, and we can't necessarily do anything about it, but there is an opportunity to speak. My concern is addressed.
Great.
So, I am very much in favor of this project. I am so grateful for all the time that the volunteers have spent and all of the dedication of our library director and staff. And I don't use the library enough, but I love all the things that I can get from it that are either electronic or printed. And I wanted to take the time tonight to try to give people a chance to speak. I'm actually disappointed that I feel the weight of the conversation was, I'm happy with what the conversation we had. I hope that people that wanted to speak came to the meeting and expressed themselves, but I would have been interested in seeing more people on both sides of the discussion so that we could have the public debate. I also agree that it's not the time anymore to continue this conversation. And I am not in support of trying to carry this again to town meeting or to conduct more public fora. So we will move on now on our agenda. Thank you, everybody, for coming, for everything that was said.
Unless you want to stick around for early voting discussion.
Maybe that's what he said, Linda. I said, who's making noise in the hallway? Is it Linda?
Thank you.
You can go ahead.
Is there anything on the chat?
Just, Kelly said she agreed with,
Oh, okay.
but chatting violates the open meeting law, so I shut it off. But yes, she agreed.
Is Linda coming? Or is she just on?
No, she was out in the hallway, I guess. Kathy, is Linda still out there?
Library trustee vacancy.
Is Linda still out there? Okay, can you just let her know she's up, please?
And there's plenty of room now all of a sudden.
She can come sit on the owl.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Thank you.
I mean, sorry.
Okay, waiting for the town clerk. I am
She is.
ready to hear what she has to say.
And you better be wonderfully entertaining at 9:30 at night.
Well, it's past my bedtime.
Mine too.
Mine too.
So, I've been down there slapping my feet.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna stay awake here. I'm gonna just I'll give you this so you can have,
Thank you.
so, ladies down here. Do I have enough? Yeah.
Is that me?
Yeah, I got one more.
Here's one more.
Yeah. So, this is my, you got enough? This is my standard request for annual elections to opt out of vote by mail, but opt into in-person early voting. I did vote by mail is a huge, undertaking, and it's a very costly project. And I've given you some detail on the second page. Part of what kind of bothers me is we have to order so many ballots, or the state actually orders and provides them. And we have probably close to, what did I say, 5,000 ballots that we're going to be discarding because they're unused. In 30 days, we'll be throwing them out. They had to, because you don't know how many people are going to vote in person, so you overestimate that number. And because you don't know how many are going to vote in person, you have to order and, overestimate what your turnout will be at election day. So for me as a taxpayer trying to save money, either at the town level or at the state level, I just find that it's a huge expensive endeavor for a little return, in the sense of it's supposed to help increase the turnout for elections, but most of the people who are voting at elections anyway are already vested and will vote. And the cards, a lot of the cards that came in, the little postcards that everybody turned in, some people only requested November, some people only requested March primary, some people only requested September and November. Many requested all elections. Right now, if we sent out vote by mail to all elections, to everybody who requested, we're probably sending out 1,500 ballots at 88 cents per ballot. And I can tell you, I spent 90% of my time, beginning on January 22nd, entering the postcard information. Now granted, that bulk of it's done, but when you think of my time from January 22nd until February 6th, I was doing most of it, Debbie was filling in. And then on the 7th, 8th, and 9th, both of us, along with 6 other people, for a total of, I did have a chart here, 73 hours of staff time doing, processing the vote by mail. And we got out close to 900 in 3 days, and then the rest kept rolling. Another process about the early voting, vote by mail. Now granted, this is part of the law has a flaw, in my opinion, that we are to accept vote by mail ballots right up until the close of polls at 8 o'clock. We processed 89 ballots on election day and busted our butt to get them. There was probably 20 that at the end of the night that I had to get entered into the computer over here and get over to the polls and then get them counted over at the polls. So, people did show up on the day of election day with their ballot in their hands. Says, do we deliver it here? No, you gotta go to the town building because it's gotta be processed here. But since it's raining out and so you don't have to get out of your car and get wet, drop it in the little blue box. Would you like to vote here in person? Because we haven't accepted your ballot. And a number of, 4 or 5 people did. Spoiled their ballots and voted in person on the day of the election. So anyway, I'm not fond of vote by mail. I am strongly in favor of in-person early voting. strongly in favor. Don't have to worry about ballots that got returned that didn't have a signature or didn't have an envelope, or you didn't know, do you really want all elections, but you don't tell me what primary ballot you want? You know, so those are kinds of things. Like I said, I am strongly in favor of in-person early voting, and I like it, as some of the two registrars says, when we voted the other day, is election day is a social event. A lot of people come in, they're cheery. We did have a couple of grumbly people or whatever, but for most part, you see people, you talk to people, you see your neighbors, you see other people in Stow. And as I tell people, it's an election day is, for me, is throwing a party for 5,600 people and hoping that they all show up. And those who do, thank you for coming to the party and participating. And I know it's convenient to vote by mail, and there's some people that would really require it. Those who require vote by mail, the option is an absentee if you're out of town, traveling, or if you have a disability that you can't get to the polls, you can't mark your ballot. There's ways to do that, the absentee balloting. For the most part, you know, I like to see everybody's faces. I like to see everybody in chat, visit, and, you know, it's democracy in action. And people can see that everything is being done, that there's no fraud, that the ballots are being counted, they're opened and handled, and anyway. So that's my spiel. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
So when people come for early voting, are there lines?
No lines. I take that back. There was a very short line on one day where there were 2 people in line. Because there were 2, husband and wife were checking in, and 2 more people were waiting to come in. It's a little, yeah. When we were doing, if you look back in special town meeting of 2023, we did 647 voters, because that was the high school project. And we did 3 days. And we were open until, we had later hours on both Tuesday and Wednesday, because I expected a big turnout. I'm expecting, based on our very limited ballot with, you know, no contested races at the time, or it's possible we'll have a contested school committee race, possibly, I don't know. I mean, we've had a contested library race at period of time. You might get 1,800 to 2,000 voters, depending. I don't think there's any ballot questions other than the charter questions, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
Correct. So, it's the topics that will get people out. And if we go back and look in the elections, I went back to look at 2016 and 2020. We did not do vote by mail in 2016. It was, nor in 2020, it was in person. And it was, bear with me, in 2016, we had a 56% turnout for the March primary. In 2020, we had a 52% turnout. In 2024, we had a 38% turnout. It's the number of people on the ballot who was running. So, anyway.
Other questions from the board?
Oh, sorry, I have one.
Yeah,
Sure.
you go, sorry. No, go.
I was just wondering what the days and hours you were proposing for.
Well, it has to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yep.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yep.
I'm proposing Monday 9 to 3. Tuesday,
I see.
9 to 7, and Wednesday 9 to 3. But I could be persuaded to make it Wednesday, if that would make, or even I don't think we need to go beyond 8 o'clock, or go to 8 o'clock on Tuesday, but I would take your advice.
Tuesday anyway.
Huh?
We're all here on Tuesday.
I know, and you're, sure, and you could vote on your way. I don't have a problem with staying until 8 o'clock.
You said Megan?
Yeah, sorry, I just,
And,
I have a motion in front of me that I was looking
Yeah,
to figure out.
Yeah.
Did you have a question? Okay, and then I'll get Kate.
Okay. In the March 2024, you had 1,001 ballots returned.
Yes.
That means they voted, except for these things down below.
Yeah.
And then you had 172 who voted in person. Now, do you believe that low in-person number was aided by the fact?
That the secretary sent out 4 million voter cards to the entire state? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
So, you've heard this from me before, but if we only do in-person voting and no mail, because I understand your argument here, I do think we need to strengthen the work, the hours for people who work.
Sure.
You know, and
Sure.
I know that's more labor and less sleep for you. But you say 9 to 3? I know this is disgusting, but could it be like 7 to 3? Or maybe go a little, I know it's disgusting.
I would do at the end of the day rather than the beginning of the day.
Okay, fine, just because I know that when I worked, I was gone from
I know.
6
So if
to
you're gone
6.
from there, you still could get an absentee ballot.
Oh, so the absentee ballot is still an option?
Yes.
That's what I want, I just want clarification on that, and I just
Yes.
want you to say it, that it is a non-judgment absentee ballot,
It is
meaning
not.
you're not gonna be like, you have a doctor's appointment or whatever, it's,
No.
you request an absentee ballot, you get an absentee
So
ballot.
the absentee ballot requires, right now, there is a reason, it's not, it has a qualifier.
Okay.
You're either absent from the town on the day of the election,
Okay.
from the hours that we have, which are 10 to 4 on a Saturday, or you have a disability that prevents you from going to the polls, or it's a religious belief, or there was a fourth one, I think if you're incarcerated for a felony.
Okay.
So, yes, but am I going to sit there and patrol that? Do you think I have time for that?
I do not, but I just wanted you to say it.
I'll say it out loud. But then if you can't do the absentee, then the in-person.
There's early voting.
I will gladly add it to the end of the night, but if I open, or Debbie and I open at 7, do you remember that I have a farm?
Yes.
To Ingeborg's point, if you're going to do early voting for 3 days, is that right?
Yes.
Could you possibly open early one day and close earlier and then open?
Well, she has to run the farm,
sort of
but unless Debbie does it?
It's just a question. It's not a request, it's a
Yeah,
question.
I'm just, and how,
You
I will
can say
tell
I
you,
don't know.
so I will tell you
Valid
right
answer.
now, I mean, we already, so when we run for the state, when we run the vote by in-person early voting for state elections and the state primary, we have to be open our regular business hours. So that means we already open at 8:30, but we are here a half hour earlier doing prep. So whatever you do it, and then we're staying at least a half an hour after to do the end of the night, the end of the day stuff. And so, we're already adding up. And I'll push a little bit more. I had 31 hours of overtime the week of the election and 32 hours prior to that. So, I mean, I do hear you, Ingrid, and we did have a lot of people that came in the evening, so going to 8 o'clock is not a killer for me. I'd rather
You're
do.
here till midnight every night.
Only on election weekend, I was here, yeah.
If absentee ballot is still an option, and you can open one night late, I'm happy.
I will do 2 nights if that would make you happy.
No,
And do Tuesday and Wednesday, I mean,
no, I don't wanna burn you out.
Probably in the fall, you'll do that.
well, it's gonna be in the fall, so this is only for town elections where we get to opt in and opt out of things. The state, on the other, is for state election. Now, if we were having a town election, a special election, on the date of a primary election, we would be doing all of that. We would be doing double duty. I will be retired before we do another one of those, I hope. I've done 5, so I don't wanna do more.
I'm gonna take Kate next, thank you. Yes, Kate?
Thank you so much, Catherine West, 8 High Street in Stow. Hi, guys. It's now become my annual custom. I feel it's important for me as an election volunteer and a friend of Linda's and some members of the board to make a public appeal for mail-in voting. I fully expect to also not be compelling, but I think it's important to get it on the record. Mail-in voting is still the most egalitarian, option-rich form of voting we have. Completely understanding the cost, the toll it takes on the staff. I am an election worker volunteer. I know exactly how hard Deb and Linda worked. On election day, I volunteered from 6 o'clock in the morning until 12:30 at night. It was a very long day. And some of that is processing the mail-in. So I don't begrudge the concern about the toll on mail-in voting. I think it's important, though, to balance that against the community good. Just hearing you folks go back and forth about, well, for people with jobs, early might be better, but for Linda, who has a farm, late's better for her, but maybe for people who are third shift, everybody's needs are unique. Everybody's feelings about the election are unique. Some people prefer to vote in person, and I think that's awesome. Some people would prefer to vote by mail, and I think that's great because everybody has kind of a different vibe they prefer about how they want to do their civic duty. But I think by allowing mail-in voting, it allows people with childcare issues, with work issues, with so forth, to be given the option to vote according to their schedule. Case in point, I actually do mail-in voting. I am at election day all day long, and I still do a mail-in ballot because I prefer to look at my ballot while I'm doing my research, particularly for local elections where there's a lot more nuances involved, and really be able to put time and thought around it without having to be rushed while I'm also working the polls. That's not everybody's preference, that's mine, but to allow mail-in voting gives people that opportunity while still giving an opportunity to those who want to vote in person. I completely appreciate, Linda, that you don't vet people's reasons for doing absentee, but I know what the rules are, and I'm not comfortable stating that I want to request an absentee ballot when I can't attest that I can't be at the polls when I'm literally
That's true, that's true.
That's just me though, that's like my weird thing.
No, and I think I agree that people will, when they see what the rules are, they don't do an absentee, they'll do in person or vote on election day.
Yeah, and it's just, so my 2 cents for what it's worth, for a citizen, I think, it hasn't proven to have a big difference on voter turnout, frankly. Some studies show it increases voters, some show it doesn't. But I think it gives voters more options, so I will always be in support of having a mail-in option available. Thank you guys for your time for what has been a very, very long night.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Kate.
Hector?
Am I correct in the statement that 2,100 people voted in the primary?
Yes. So where it was more than 50% voted in person, right? 21.
Voted in person says 172.
No, that was in person early voting at the election day.
That's early voting.
That's
Okay,
early voting,
election
in
day.
person early vote, an election day itself.
So it was 994 people?
Hold on, I don't think I have it in this, in this data. So I do have it in somewhere else here.
Mike,
So when you looked at the turnout, Debbie did it and gave it to me and I wrote it down. So our in person for the March 5th, right? We had 2,153 votes, right?
that's what I have.
Yeah, 2153, right? And the
So 987 of those were mailed in.
so the but about
And 172 of those were the early voters.
1,100 had returned their ballots, and then you add another 172 that voted in person. So the balance
Well,
of
taking
the,
away the 24 that got
No, 2153 is the total number of votes cast on election.
Yeah, I was looking at the 24 that got rejected,
No,
so I
that's
figured
different, that's different.
987 total.
No.
But
The
in
number
essence-
that you're asking for is not in that data
And in essence, 50% voted
on election day.
mail-in voted.
Under 50% voted by mail.
Plus or minus.
Yeah,
So
it's
quite a
pretty
few
even.
people did.
Yeah.
Why did that happen on primary day and not on other elections?
Well, we didn't have vote by mail in those other two dates, the September and the annual of 23. We only did in-person early voting. It's only the state election that we had done the vote by mail.
I'm concerned that if 50% of the, close to 50% of the people voted by mail, what are we doing by not giving them that option? Now, this is for the September election, you said, right?
No, we're only talking about the annual town election,
May 18th,
May
okay.
18th. And that's all I'm asking to opt out of vote by mail.
Which is normally a low turnout anyway.
Correct.
Less turnout than.
So I figure, I figure that if we send out those 1,500 ballots, the people who ask for all elections, if they ask for it, you probably would get less than 50% of those back because most of them don't participate. Now, they might, but I think when we did, was it the election when you were elected? Were you elected at a special election?
Yeah, it was a
Yes.
September election.
So that at that one, we sent out all the vote by mail ballots to everybody because it was on a state election day. And there were over 500 ballots that didn't get returned. And, which is, a significant amount of dollars and time and staff and I just felt that it was wasted. Now, I'm saying everybody who voted in those elections typically will vote in person anyway. They have shown that in the past. If you don't have that option, if you feel that you wanted to have the vote by mail, we'll do it.
But the turnout for a town election is not
I think it's
gonna
gonna be very small, even if we send it out. A lot of people are gonna say, what the hell is this ballot? I don't vote in that. They haven't had an option to opt out of it.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Megan, one thing.
I think given the fact that we have Saturday voting, for this election, I would be fine with us getting rid of vote by mail for this one. It is the November election where it's Tuesday that I feel like because this country does not close down for election day and other people have to work.
We have 2 weeks of early
We have
voting.
no choice. Yeah, we have no choice in those.
We have no choice.
Okay.
This is the only one, the annual elections and special elections at a town and local level that are not held on a state election day are the only dates that you get to, that's the only choice.
Fantastic. I think if we can save some money, we should save some money and time on this one.
So, I don't wanna discuss this now, but I just have a brief comment, and maybe that's not fair, but I just have a brief comment. It seems to me that there is some benefit to some folks for voting by mail.
Yes.
And if there were a way, and again, I don't understand how much of this is governed by, well, I'm sure all of it is. If there were a way to streamline it, for instance, yep, you can vote by mail, but you gotta come down to the clerk's office and get your ballot, and get your envelope, and get all your,
You could not take your ballot home. It
I see.
has to be mailed. It's a requirement under the law. There has been, the town clerks have asked for many years now to have at-will absentee voting. It requires 2 votes, it's a constitutional amendment. So, and the legislature has failed to act at any time to get that in place. So now we have vote by mail, absentee voting, in-person voting, in-person early voting. The clerks are pulling their hair out, trying to get it streamlined to get it better in.
I'm satisfied and ready to vote on this.
Fantastic.
Anybody else?
Just to be clear, Madam Chair, am I voting you know what, I'm just gonna move, I'm gonna make a motion.
There you go.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the option of in-person early voting in Stow for the 2024 annual town election on Monday, May 13th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., Tuesday, May 14th from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., and Wednesday, May 15th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
I thought we were doing Wednesday till 7 p.m. as well.
We'll do Wednesday till 7 p.m.
Great. So amended.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I move to opt out of vote by mail in Stow for the 2024 annual town election.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Thank you for doing the extra hour.
Thank
you.
And I hope people show up.
Well, maybe we'll have some contested races. That will get people to show
That'd be
up.
exciting.
Great.
And yeah, no, we don't need ballot questions. Anyway,
Thank you for waiting.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
no worries.
For the late
I was catching up on 3 weeks worth of stuff that in my office that didn't involve elections.
I figured if you weren't here champing at the bit, you
Oh,
probably were doing something.
I was sitting down there.
And slapping your face.
It's like,
Wake up,
well,
wake up.
Good night.
Good night, Linda.
Good night.
getting down to it.
Okay.
Minutes.
Did these came back because
Because
You need to
there
make that
was a closed captions.
Right.
Miscaptured
Okay.
Ms. Wood's words, and so
Okay.
we wanted to just not make that error.
Great.
Denise.
If I may, I just want to clarify, Joyce does not use the closed captioning when she does the minutes. She legitimately heard the wrong word as well. So I don't want people to think that AI are doing our minutes or it's
No,
being done
okay.
by the transcript. Joyce listens and watches the minutes and she heard it and she said she heard it and then she looked at the closed captioning and she heard it again and she thought that the word that was in there was what was said. So I did just want to clarify that it was just she just misheard it. It wasn't about the closed
And I
captioning.
actually wound up listening and looking, and it was deceiving, so that's where we are.
Meaning that your comment that it was an error is correct.
The error, yes,
Okay,
it
thank
was the it was hard to understand what Ms. Wood was actually saying. It was easy to misunderstand and misquote.
Thank you.
Are you ready for motion? And I'm gonna abstain from this one, just so you know. Madam Chair, I move to accept the meeting minutes of the February 13th, 2024 meeting.
Can you
As
say as
drafted.
amended?
Oh, as,
Oh, because.
No,
because
they're
it's
presented.
as drafted, this is the one, yep.
Okay. Sorry,
Second. I am seconding, right?
Yep.
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions?
Aye. Thank you. I was not there at the meeting. You ready for the second motion?
February 27th.
All right, Madam Chair, I move to accept the meeting minutes of the February 27th, 2024 meeting as drafted.
Second.
Any comments on those? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Any comments on, or any requests to have items from correspondence put on a future agenda?
Do you wanna talk about Verizon?
Nope.
Okay.
Listen.
Then I'm good.
All right, you ready for a final motion?
Courtney,
Or
I just have-
do you have
wait,
anything
wait.
else to say, sorry?
A quick question.
Yes, please.
I don't remember what your Minuteman Airfield thing was.
Somebody sent a letter to me, and I
Forwarded it to us.
forwarded it to us, and I actually believe I did it in error. The person does not live in town.
And it was about Boulder, Colorado. They were trying to compare Boulder, Colorado to the Minuteman Airport
Okay,
and a potential sale.
all right, then I.
Potential
It was in
redevelopment.
correspondence, she responded to an email from a constituent.
My bad.
Sorry.
Ready for a final motion?
Yes, please.
All right, Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Look at that,
That is
almost
unanimous.
10 o'clock.
Yep.
Holy Mongoli.
Thank you guys for hanging in. I thought it
you.
was important to do that.